From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Got a pigeon coop on his roof. And sometimes I go up there and watch Todd waving this huge white sheet back and forth till all the pigeons come swooping above us, flying back and forth and up and down, making those swooping pigeon sounds. Those days I'm not scared about pigeon poop on my head, because the way they fly all slow above us and Todd's brown face all broken out and the biggest smile you ever seen on a teenager, all of that stuff makes you look up into the sky and believe in everything you ever wanted to believe in. And, and this last one from Locomotion is called Hey Dog, which was actually the first piece I wrote in the book. Hey dog, that's what you call your boys. Hey dog, you want to hoop? Then you and your dogs are throwing the ball around and talking about girls and ball players and stuff you're going to have one day. A red car, some slamming kicks, a shearling coat, pocket full of money, pretty girl, satellite dish, and cable. On and on, you and your dogs, 2 college degrees, straight A, straight up, a fat deal with the Lakers, nah, the Knicks, nah, the Nets. Nah, the Nets ain't nothing. What you talking about, dog? The Nets got game. Yeah, game of tag, maybe, game of checkers, game of pin the tail on a donkey. Just grinning, talking junk, not even knowing when or where the people started calling the people they like to be around dog, but liking it and feeling good when your dog slaps your back, gives you a quick hug, says, "What's up, dog?" So growing up in New York City, you see a lot of stuff. And one thing I started thinking about as a writer is retelling stories. So I decided I wanted to retell the story of Romeo and Juliet. And I wrote a book called If You Come Softly, which was that, thank you. And it's the story of an I decided to make it a present-day story. And it's the story of an African-American boy who's 15, Jeremiah, and he and a white Jewish girl, Ellie, fall in love at a private school on the Upper East Side. And because it was the story of Romeo and Juliet, I knew it had to be a tragedy. Again, I'm not outlining, I'm just thinking thoughts in my head before I write them down. I knew it had to be a tragedy, and I knew it meant somebody dying. And I knew I didn't want both people to die. So first I wrote it and I killed off Ellie's mom. But I realized I had killed off a lot of parents in my books over the years and decided to resurrect her, which is one of the powerful things about being a writer, right? You could just bring people right back to life. But it was, I think it was Roald Dahl who said that parents die in stories so that kids can go on their adventure. And he's like the king of killing parents off. But so I had killed off some parents and decided the parents were going to live. They were going to survive this novel. And so then I realized I had to kill off a child. And so I wrote the story and rewrote it, and then Ellie died. And then it wasn't working. It didn't seem, it was flawed in a lot of ways. So she got to live. And then at the same time, there was all of these cases of police brutality, cases that I had grown up with, like Edmund Perry, who was an 18-year-old boy at Phillips Exeter who got shot in the back by cops. And then, of course, Amadou Diallo and Louis, the list just went on and on and on. And for those of you who don't know the story of Amadou Diallo, he was an African immigrant a few years back. And the police were casing his apartment building. And what he knew from his country, from his culture, that what you did when a person in a position of authority approached you, you showed him your ID. So he reached into his pocket to get his ID, and they shot him 41 times. And they said they thought he was reaching for a gun. So that was when that story happened. All this stuff was happening, and I thought, if this was the story, if this was going to be a true retelling, then we need a true tragedy. So I'm sorry, I'm giving you the spoiler. So in the end, Jeremiah dies in a case of police brutality. And the book is written from 2 points of view, first person and third person. First person is Ellie, because she's lived to tell her story, and third person is Jeremiah, because he hasn't. So I wrote the book, and as we say in the world of writing, the book has a life, it goes on. Some people like it, some people hate it, especially your friends, because they're so mad that you killed off this character they really liked. And it had a life, and then I went on. I, had a child. I wrote some other books. And then the World Trade Center came down. And when it came down, I ended up losing friends. And I suddenly started thinking about, what do you do with this kind of loss that happens so quickly? How do you have any catharsis around it, and how do you move forward? And the characters in If You Come Softly came back to me, and I started thinking about Jeremiah, who was a character who had died suddenly. And I started writing a book called Behind You. A lot of times young people ask me, is stuff I write autobiographical? And I always say it's emotionally autobiographical, but not necessarily physically autobiographical. And with Behind You, obviously, it's not physically autobiographical because one of the main characters telling the story is dead, and I have not been dead yet. So it's written in vignettes, and I'm just going to read the first vignette, which is the point of view of Jeremiah right after he's been shot. You do not die. Your soul steps out of your body, shakes itself hard because it's been carrying the weight of your heavy skin for 15 years. Then your soul lifts up and looks down at your body lying there, looks down at the blood running onto concrete. Your eyes snapped open like the pages in some kid's forgotten picture book. Your chest not moving. Your soul sees this and feels something beyond sadness, feels its whole self whispering further away. Past the trees in Central Park, past the statues and runners and children playing on swings. Over yellow taxi cabs and late afternoon flickering streetlights. Away from the dusting of snow, the white tips of trees, the darkening sky. Already you hear your mother screaming. Already you see your father dropping his head into his hands, helpless. Already you see your friends walking through the halls of Percy Academy, stunned. But you do not die. Each breath your soul takes is cool and reminds you of a taste you loved a long time ago, licorice, peppermint. Rain. Then your soul is you all over again, only lighter and freer and able to be 1,000 places at once. Your new soul eyes look around, see 2 cops standing there. One cop curses and kicks a tree. He's dead, the other cop says, and he curses again. Your soul doesn't like the way the curse word sounds, too hard, too heavy in the new soul light air. The cops can't see you. They see a boy on the ground, a young boy, a black boy. They know this is not the man they've been looking for. They know they've made a mistake. Your soul looks at the boy and knows his friends called him Maya, but his full name was Jeremiah Roseland, tall, dark. He has locks, and his locks are spread over the ground. His eyes are open wide, greenish gray, lifeless eyes. Your soul looks at that boy and thinks, somebody loved that boy once. Thinks, once that boy was me. The wind blows the snow left and right, up and down. You are so light, you move with the wind and the snow. Let the weather take you. And it takes you over a world of sadness and anger and fear, over a world of first kisses and hands touching and someone you're falling in love with. She's there right now. Look closely. Yeah, that's her. That's my Ellie. Thank you. So one question writers get asked a lot is writing hard? And I think anything that you love to do is going to be trying at times. And it's even harder now. I have a 7-year-old and a 19-month-old back at home, so I got a good night's sleep last night. But I think one of the things that's really the challenge is to go to those places that are hard emotionally and then pull yourself back out from them to be mom or sister or brother or whatever you're having to be in your everyday life. But I love writing, and I've always loved it. And for those of you who know, I've written 29 books now. And the cool thing about it is people do give you stickers for your book. But the even cooler thing about it is when you get an award like the Newbery or the Caldecott or the Coretta Scott King, they send you a whole bunch of the stickers, and you could just put them on all your books. And then you could put them on your friends' books. So I actually ran out because I used them on a lot. Any librarians here? I used them on a lot of books. But the books that I have them on today actually have really, really did win them. So I swear. I am going to read from just 2 more books, Feathers. So, you know, I write picture books and young adult books and everything. And Feathers is a book I wrote because I had visited a lot of populations, but there was one population I felt was still very invisible to the world. And Feathers is the first book that features a deaf boy who's African American, and his name is Sean. You know, I don't like to fold down pages, but it does help you find the page you're looking for. Monday morning, as me and Sean walked to school, Feathers takes place in 1970. The person telling the story is Franny, and she's in the 6th grade. Her brother Sean is deaf. He's 14, and it's winter time. Monday morning, as me and Sean walked to school, 2 girls came up to us. One of the girls smiled at Sean and said, "What do you know good, pretty boy?" Sean's hair was starting to get longer, and that morning he picked it out into a short afro. He was wearing a black turtleneck and his black pea coat, jeans and new boots. "Huh, pretty boy?" the girl said again, "you with the pretty eyes and hair." I didn't know if I was more shocked by what she was saying or by the fact that they had just come up on us like that. I mean, girls looked at Sean all the time, and sometimes he tried to talk to them, but no one had just ever walked up on us that way. And what if I had been his girlfriend? But Sean just smiled at her. "You gonna tell his sister your name?" the girl asked. Her friend giggled but didn't say anything. Sean looked at me and signed, "Tell them." "His name is Sean," I said, not very loud either, because I didn't feel like being an interpreter to a girl who thought she could come out of nowhere and say all kinds of things to my brother. "What's wrong with his mouth?" the girl said, rolling her eyes at me. I wanted to lie and say, "What's wrong with your ignorant mouth?" But Sean was looking all happy about the girl, so I didn't. "He's deaf, just deaf, not stupid." Sean made the sign for being deaf, his pointer finger moving from his ear to his mouth. The girl looked from me to him and then at me again. "He can't talk either." "He just did," I said, getting mad. "You just didn't understand what he said." I put my hands on my hips like I was daring her to walk away. "At least you don't gotta worry about him arguing with you and stuff like that," the girl's friend said to her. "That's what kind of boyfriend I need, somebody who's just gonna be quiet and let me talk." I signed to Sean, "They're stupid. Even though I know you think she's cute, don't even waste your time. She seems dumber than a broken stick." "So like if me and him went out," the girl was saying, "you'd have to come with us or something?" "See, Sean, can we go now?" I looked at the girl, and she grabbed her friend's arm and started walking away. "Dang," she said, "all that fineness wasted." I could see the smile falling off of Sean's face. "There's a lot of pretty deaf girls at your school," I said to Sean. "Why even bother with the hearing ones?" Sean looked away from me. "I know that," he signed, getting annoyed, like it was my fault those girls were walking away. "So why do you get all excited when the hearing ones try to talk to you? You know it's going to end up stupid." Sean shrugged, still looking away. "Remember the bridge?" he signed. I shook my head. "You know, when we were sitting at the window that day and I said, what if we could build some kind of bridge from every window?" I nodded, slowly remembering. "It's like that, Franny. The hearing girls are the bridges. They're the other worlds, the worlds I can't just walk across and into, you know?" "Kind of. I mean, the deaf girls, they're my world. We don't even have to talk and we know each other. But I don't just want my world. I want everybody else's world, too. But they're just some dumb old girls, Sean." That day, when I said it, you just kind of looked at me like I was crazy. And you know why? Sean looked at me and waited. Yes, I signed, because I didn't understand what you were talking about. Yeah, because you already have both worlds, Franny. You can walk wherever you want. Minutes? How much time I have? Okay. When Suni's great-grandma was 7, she was sold from the Virginia land to a plantation in South Carolina without her ma or pa, but with some muslin her ma had given her and 2 needles she got from the big house and thread dyed bright red with berries from the chokecherry tree. In South Carolina, Big Mama raised Suni's great-grandma, raised most of the slave children on that large patch of land. At night, Big Mama told the children stories she'd tell in a whisper about children growing up and getting themselves free. And the children leaned in and listened real hard. And in the daytime, when there was some few minutes for a slave to rest a bit, Big Mama taught Suni's great-grandma to sew colored thread into stars and moons and roads, tiny patch pieces of stars and moons and roads that slave children grew up and followed late in the night, a piece of the quilt and a true moon leading them. Years passed. Big Mama moved on to the next world, and Suni's great-grandma grew up. Jumped room with a young man named Insla, had herself a baby girl, named that girl child Mathis May. Loved that baby up, so yeah, she loved that baby up. And one day Mathis May would be Suni's mother, but not for a long, long time yet. In the meantime, she learned to sew. Beautiful girl child, learned to sew. So I'm ending with that. That's from Showe, which is a history. Thank you. A history of my family from my great-great-great-grandma to my daughter Toshi. And my grandmother was actually Suni, and my grandmother was Georgiana, who my daughter is named after, Toshi Georgiana. But I wanted to tell a story about the history of the way the quilts were used during the Underground Railroad, and about how I became a person who sewed and told stories. I think the thing about being a storyteller is it doesn't happen in a vacuum. We're here because of the people who came before us. We're doing what we're doing in our everyday lives because of the work that people did to get us to this point. And with that said, again, I want to say I'm glad to be here. Thank you. I have 2 minutes for questions.
Planning to write more books?
Am I planning to write more books? Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you. I'll repeat it. Okay. That's a good question. When a character comes to me, how do I know if what's emerging is a picture book, a middle grade, young adult, poetry, prose? I don't. I usually, when I'm writing a picture book, it's written in poetry, so I have the line breaks. As you notice with Shoei, there's an internal rhyme scheme going on, and I'm aware of that. Everything I write, I read out loud. And it's not until later in the book that I go, this is a picture book, so let me go back and revise it accordingly, or this is... I tend to know when it's a young adult book, because with a young adult book, you have a bigger landscape, so I take much more time telling the story. But it does get figured out. I think I have time for one more. Okay.
Hello.
Hey. Oh. Thank you. Thank you. And thanks that I'm so excited you're still writing. Thank you. Thanks, y'all. Oh, you can ask me. I'm sorry, just this last one.
Thank you. What advice do you have for novice picture book writers?
My biggest advice, read lots of picture books. The way you learn to write is by reading. If you're writing the picture book, read the text. Don't look at the pictures. The pictures, you come later. And just study the form. And again, with picture books, every line matters. When you look at the other side, that summer there was a fence that stretched to our, this fence that stretched to our town seemed bigger. from the first line, the reader is seeing a picture. So as you're reading picture books, look to see how authors get the pictures on the page through the words. And don't be concerned with what am I trying to say, what kind of story am I trying to tell. Just tell the story. Just write. Thank you.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.